everything we said about Ryan Day up into the playoffs was true.
Not bad. Come on, Kenner. You can do better than that.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kenner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, welcome in. Happy Monday, the Justin Kenner Show, presented by Frickers. We are off and rolling here this afternoon. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I don't know about you guys. I am over this weather. I am tired of the rain. I am tired of it all. It's golf season. We should be out golfing. We should be outside. We should be out doing yard work. We should just be enjoying the good old sunshine. And instead, we're dealing with just this horrendous weather. I'm over it, but glad to be hanging out with you guys here this afternoon. A ton to get into here today. A little college football to open up the show. More self-imposed punishments by a national championship winning program that did nothing wrong. I mean, come on. It's been a while since we've talked about that cheating program up north. So we'll open up with that coming up here in a moment. Let's see. The Reds, they dropped 2 or 3 against the Nationals, and every time I feel like that team has turned a corner, every time I feel like that team is ready to hit the ground running and start to get momentum going and getting people to buy in, they remind people why no one believes in the Cincinnati Reds. And it's so frustrating and it's tough. And speaking of tough, the Reds start a 4-game series on the road at the Atlanta Braves after dropping 2 or 3 against the Nationals over the weekend. Dropping 2 or 3 against the Nationals over the weekend, splitting against a divisional rival in the Cardinals. It should have been a series win for them. We got a lot to get into when it comes to the Cincinnati Reds. Let's see, what else do we have? I know we spent some time on this on Off the Bench throughout the afternoon, but Abdul Carter, drafted 3rd overall by the New York Giants. He wanted Lawrence Taylor's number, not phone number. He wanted to wear number 56. He wanted to wear Lawrence Taylor's number, a number that is retired and a number that nobody else should ever wear, especially for the Giants moving forward. And it's brought upon a lot of criticism. Lawrence Taylor told Abdul Carter, thanks, but no thanks. And yeah, we have that conversation coming up for you here in a bit. It is interesting seeing the amount of names that some of your favorite franchises have, or numbers, former great players. How many of their numbers have been retired in recent years? Cincinnati Bengals have 1. We'll talk about that coming up here shortly. All right, let's get to it. I'm Justin Kenner. It's the Justin Kenner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. All right, so let's get to it. The day started with some very interesting news. Now, all of this is not finalized. There has been no official suspension that has been announced. A lot of this started with sources on 3 reported earlier today in the morning. It said, breaking news, Michigan's Sharon Moore is expected to suspend himself in weeks 3 and 4 as a punishment in the advanced scouting case. That's a very nice way of saying in the cheating scandal, according to ESPN. Now, as we sit here right now, we've spent a ton of time on this, debating this ad nauseum about, just should there be an asterisk next to the national championship that Michigan won a few seasons ago? How big of a deal? What was the severity level of the lengths of which Connor Stallions and the Michigan coaching staff went to acquire opponents' signs? How much Harbaugh actually knew, how much, the president, the athletic director knew, how much Sharon Moore knew, how much the coaching staff as a whole knew. We have argued and debated this ad nauseum. We're sick of it. We're tired of it. But there's more layers that keep coming back. To me, you look at the fact that President Ono, again, he leaves Michigan. It was announced that he's leaving Michigan to go to Florida to take the same position over there. That was the Michigan news that came out of the weekend. Didn't think anything of it. Thought it was weird, but whatever. And then not even less than 24 hours later, you have this report coming out that Sharon Moore is looking to suspend himself for games 3 and 4 of the upcoming season to kind of help soften the blow when the NCAA brings the hammer down for them doing absolutely nothing wrong, according to every Michigan fan that you talk to. And I think there's something there. I think we are about to get the final verdict from the NCAA. I think that the NCAA is about to come out and release the punishment, if you will, whether it's vacated wins, whether it's loss of scholarships, show cause, whatever. We've already seen multiple coaches get, obviously brushed up in the rug with that. Sharon Moore President Ono leaves, Harbaugh leaves, coaches getting show cause penalties, their coaches leaving, suspensions left and right. I mean, there's something here. And I don't care anymore. Like, anyone out there that thinks your school, if you're a Michigan fan and you think your program did nothing wrong, you're full of crap. I say that, and here, you guys ready for this? This is where people usually try to nice in the blow. I'm here to tell you, I mean that as disrespectfully as possible. If you think your program did nothing wrong, you're full of crap. It's as simple as that. I mean, this idea that the NCAA is spending this much time digging into all of this. I mean, you have you have literal, like, guys are going to be facing legal action. Federal crimes were committed in the midst of all of this stuff. Like, this is not a nothing burger, as a lot of people like to claim it is. But I don't really care anymore whether you think your school did something wrong or not, because they did. You can live in denial. That's fine. That's your prerogative. Everyone has not been able to convince Michigan fans that their program's a cheating, lying program. That's fine. They'll never believe that anyway. So it is what it is. I'm not here to have that debate today on this show. What I'm here to do is to sit here and poke fun at another layer of this story, because Sharon Moore comes out, or at least hasn't come out, but at least there's reports coming out that he is going to come out and basically say, I'm going to slap my own wrist. I'm going to self-impose a 2-game suspension, not for games 1 and 2 of the season. No. I want the suspension to start a couple games later. That way I can coach in the Oklahoma game, and then I'll just miss a couple games against some no-name opponents. Right? Like, have you guys ever heard of a suspension where a team says, hey, like, especially outside of the season, suspensions have happened in the middle of the season or later in the season, like with Harbaugh. But, a lot of those are as more information's coming out as the season's progressing. We're sitting here in May. I mean, we still have the rest of May, June, July, August. We still have 3.5, 4 months before we even get to the college football season. And he's already, allegedly, according to reports and sources, about to come out and self-impose his own 2-game suspension to show the NCAA that we're taking this serious. They're taking it so serious that the 2-game suspension will not be in weeks 1 and 2. It'll be in weeks 3 and 4, according to reports. Again, this suspension has not been finalized by any means. But why would you skip weeks 1 and 2? Why would you suspend yourself in weeks 3 and 4? Oh, yeah. How about this? Michigan opens up the season in Ann Arbor, welcoming in New Mexico. Now, it's New Mexico. It's not as if that is an opponent that sends fear down your back by any means, but that is that's the wet your palate, if you will, for what comes the next week, which is Oklahoma. Michigan in week 2 of the 2025 college football season has to go to Norman to play the Sooners. Michigan at Oklahoma, week 2, September 6th, 2025. So you're not going to start the suspension in weeks 2 and 3. You can't start the suspension in week 1 and be out 1 and 2. So it's not as if there's, you want to be able to coach into the season. You want to coach week 1 against New Mexico. You definitely want to coach against Oklahoma if you're Sharon Moore. And then once you get past that non-conference game, you know what? We got Central Michigan in week 3. I could suspend myself for that. And then we got Nebraska. Michigan feels they're better than Nebraska, so of course they're going to skip. Sharon Moore's going to skip that game. This is the whole point. Like, if you're going to hand out a punishment, it needs to be severe enough to where you're getting the NCAA's attention that you really are taking it serious. Do you think that the NCAA is going to take Michigan serious when they see that, okay, I'm going to suspend myself, but I need to suspend myself in week 3 and 4 against Central Michigan and Nebraska. I need to be on the sideline for the Oklahoma game. Do you see how ridiculous that sounds? Do you see how ridiculous Sharon Moore looks? Do you see how ridiculous the Michigan program looks? This isn't a debate anymore about whether Michigan did anything or not, because they did. That's why these things are happening. If you think they didn't do anything, you're full of it. You've lost that argument. Move on. You move on from that. I'll move on from it. You're wrong. I'm right. Ohio State fans are right. College football fans are right. You're wrong. It's as simple as that. You cheated. Asterisk next to your national championship. You should have won it clean like Ohio State. I tell you what, as a Buckeye fan, I feel great knowing that my team won a national championship the right way. But that's besides the point. Just wanted to make sure I get that, make that clear. This is just, it's everything they do is just weird. It's silly. It's embarrassing. You got Sharon Moore years ago crying, I did it for Harbaugh, bawling. Just bawling on live TV because he got a win. Good for him. You know, you didn't do it for Harbaugh. I mean, Harbaugh did this to you. You got thrown in that situation because of your coaching staff knowingly cheating to win a national championship. I didn't feel bad for them. Everything they do, it's just cringe. Even when you try to do the right thing, all right, we got caught. I tell you what, NCAA, we're going to suspend ourselves. But we're going to do it in weeks 3 and 4 because we're playing nobody those weeks. I really need to coach against Oklahoma. Like, who are you kidding? Who do you think you're fooling in that? Imagine, go back to when you were in high school and you got grounded by your parents. And they say, hey, you're going to be suspended for the next 2 weeks. Oh, come on, Mom. I got a party next week. How about we move my grounding to the final 2 weeks of the month? That way I can go to the party, have fun. And then the final 2 weeks when I have nothing going on, no parties, nothing going on with friends, I'll serve my grounding then. No, your parents are going to be like, no, this is to teach you a lesson. You are not going to go to that party with your friends and have a good time. You're going to sit at home and you're going to think about what you did. And that's what the NCAA needs to do to Mr. Crybaby Delusional Sharon Moore. No, you don't get to coach against Oklahoma. In fact, you need to go home and think about what you did. It's as simple as that. Michigan looks ridiculous in this situation. Sharon Moore looks like an idiot in this situation. The bottom line is this wouldn't even be a topic on this show. If Michigan would have come out and said, hey, we're going to self-impose a couple game suspension weeks 1 and 2, just to try to appease the NCAA, then we'll move on. Great. It would have been like a talking point briefly on the show. We move on. But when you actually see what they did today, according to reports, that they are trying to self-impose a suspension for weeks 3 and 4 so that he could still coach the important game against Oklahoma. And then he'll face his suspension when he has nothing else going on. Like I said, go back to when you're in high school and you're grounded and you tell your mom, hey, can we move my grounding to later on? That way I could still go out and enjoy my party coming up and I could see my friends and really not be taught a lesson at all. Or your parents could say, no, you're going to miss the party. You're going to stay at home. You're going to think about what you did. And there's actual repercussions for making bad decisions. Michigan made a bad decision. They cheated to win a national championship. Now you're about to get caught. You're trying to self-impose a punishment to lessen the blow from the NCAA. They're going to see that you tried to lessen the blow, but you just looked even dumber doing it in the process. And then they're going to hand down a big suspension or probably vacated wins or whatever it is coming up. I cannot wait. This isn't a witch hunt. This isn't the NCAA out to get Michigan. This isn't Ohio State fans being Ohio State fans. This is your cheating program finally being held accountable, and you know it's coming. That's why the president who has said in the past, who has said that that's his dream school, who leaves their dream school willingly? Harbaugh, that was his dream coaching job, his dream school. He also willingly left Michigan. Why are all these people with high up positions at their dream school just leaving on their own? I mean, come on. This whole thing's a joke. It's embarrassing, not only to college football, but to themselves. It is what it is. All right. It's the Justin Kinder Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Off and rolling here on a Monday. Unbelievable. Michigan again. According to On3, ESPN, and many other sources out there, Michigan's Sharon Moore is expected to suspend himself in weeks 3 and 4 as a punishment in the advanced scouting case, according to ESPN. That's an X post from earlier in the day from On3, covers college football. Suspend himself weeks 3 and 4, not 1 and 2, because he has to coach that Oklahoma game. Give me a break. It's ridiculous. It is what it is. But we'll pick up with this when we come back. I see some comments in the comment section. I haven't jumped into that yet. Head to Facebook. Everyone has Facebook. The Justin Kinder Show on Facebook. Weigh in the comment section. Does this make Michigan look more ridiculous than what they already did? Asking for a suspension in weeks 3 and 4 when you play nobody so that you could be on the sideline when you play as somebody. Or am I, as a Buckeye fan, just overblowing this? Where there's smoke, there's fire, though. 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. You can also leave your comments on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. We'll be right back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
Well, the forecast says showers likely.
All right, and we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Happy Monday. I hope everyone had a great weekend. Got a lot more to get into. We'll get into the Reds coming up here shortly. They kick off a series with the Braves, Atlanta Braves on the road, coming up later on tonight. And they're coming out for a weekend when they dropped 2 or 3 against the Nationals after taking game 1 in dominating fashion on Friday night. A dominant performance from Hunter Green. But the Reds, I mean, to drop the next 2, to get out, 15, giving up 15 runs in the final 2 games of that series, when pitching has been their strong suit, and it really wasn't complemented by good hitting either. So it was just a bad weekend at the ballpark for the Reds. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. Want to give a shout out to Titan Graphics. Titan Graphics is the Miami Valley's choice for custom screen printing, embroidery, laser engraving, and promotional products. Place your order today at Titan Graphics. All right. Sharon Moore in Michigan in the headlines today. And as I said to open up the show, I no longer have interest in debating whether you think your program did anything wrong or not. If you could say you don't think your program did anything wrong, but there's not all of this noise and chaos if your program didn't do anything wrong. So I'm done with that argument with people. You lost the war. It is what it is. And now punishments are going to be coming here in the very near future. So it is what it is. Look, so on 3, as we opened up the show with, tweeted out earlier today in the next post that Michigan's Sharon Moore is expected to suspend himself weeks 3 and 4 as a punishment in the advanced scouting case. And that was according to their sources and reports from ESPN. Now, let's make this very, very clear. Michigan has not announced a suspension for Sharon Moore. There is no set suspension in place, but it sounds like that could be the case at some point. And as I said to open the show, I really don't care. Like, that's how this stuff works. If Michigan wants to self-impose a 2-game suspension for him, great, do it. That's what you're supposed to do to try to obviously get in better standing with the NCAA, and maybe they'll show a little, mercy whenever they hand down the punishment. I don't mind the 2-game suspension. What I mind is Michigan acting as if like they're just delusional and they don't know how to read the room. If you're going to self-impose a suspension, self-impose a suspension. Weeks 1 and 2 to start, hey, we're going to be, suspend Sharon Moore the first 2 weeks of the season. Get a couple weeks into the season. It's an afterthought. Focus on the rest. Now, what they're wanting is not to be suspended to start the season. No, they want to dictate when the suspension happens. Before we even get to the season, it's not like it's week 2 of the college football season and they're saying, hey, by the way, we're going to suspend our head coach Sharon Moore for the next 2 weeks. No, we're sitting here in May. Not even at the mid-half. I mean, it's May 5th. And they're coming out and saying, we're going to suspend our coach possibly, by the way, nothing final, that we're possibly going to have our coach be suspended for weeks 3 and 4 of the college football season. Because in week 2, we play Oklahoma, so we really need our coach for that. But we don't really care about Central Michigan or Nebraska. That is absolutely wild to me. That's what I can't wrap my head around. And it's just another example of them mocking this when it's all said and done. Everything is just, it's mocking the situation. They truly feel like they've done nothing wrong. Everything is just a game to them. And I mean, just the lack of self-awareness in this. The analogy I gave earlier is imagine if you do something wrong in high school and your parents want to, ground you for a couple of weeks, but you tell your parents, hey, I have a big party next week. If you could just move my grounding back to the final couple weeks of the month, that'd be great. That way I could still go out with friends. That way I could still have a good time. And that way I don't have to miss anything. I have nothing going on the final 2 weeks of the month. Just ground me then. Yeah, because what lesson would you learn then? You still get to go out and have fun and do whatever you want. And then you're already going to be staying in anyways. So you'll serve your grounding then. What lesson are you going to learn then? That's what Sharon Moore's wanting. Hey, I really need to coach when my team plays at Oklahoma. It's a Big Ten versus SEC showdown, playoff implications on the line. I missed it my first year. It was kind of given the benefit of the doubt because obviously, the transition year with Harbaugh. I can't miss the playoffs 2 years in a row. I really need this game 2 against Oklahoma. I need to be out there coaching. I'll serve my suspension starting in week 3. When you got nothing going on, Central Michigan, Nebraska, which Michigan should be better than, right? Like, come on. This is a joke. Michigan's a joke. The national championship's a joke. This whole storyline is a joke. And getting to the point where no one's laughing anymore. Everyone's just uncomfortable because Michigan is just delusional as far as that's concerned. Ron Howard, he weighs in on Facebook. Why doesn't the NCAA drop the hammer, not make up your own punishment? They are about to drop the hammer. I don't know what that hammer is going to be, Ron, but this is Michigan basically saying, we know something's coming. Maybe if we self-impose our own suspension, that'll show the NCAA that we're taking this serious too, and that they'll kind of be a little bit more lenient with whatever the hammer is that they do drop on the program. So I do think that they're going to drop the hammer. They don't do this in any kind of timely fashion by any means. So there's that. Roger, what up, Roger, on YouTube? Roger says they should have just suspended him for the spring game. It's about the level of competition that you're going to get whenever you play Central Michigan in week 3 or whenever it is that he wants to start his suspension at the end of the day. I mean, just a joke. Troy on Facebook says that and I think he's a Michigan fan too. He says the hammer is coming later in the summer. More could even be fired. Remember, Tressel was suspended twice before being fired, but Michigan will not vacate the title. Okay. I mean, wins are going to most likely. I mean, I have a hard time believing that of all the stuff that's going to come down, that vacated wins are going to come with this. If they find this severe enough, keep in mind that, when the notice of allegations came out in August of 2024, when those notice of allegations in 2024 came out, there was 11 of them. There was 11 violations that were on that report. 6 of those were level 1 violations. More than half of the 11 notice of allegations were level 1. And this is an investigation into whether this team cheated. So I don't know how you can have this big, long, deep investigation regarding cheating, regarding giving yourself a competitive advantage out on that field in an unfair way. I don't know how wins would not be vacated in this particular situation. Wins that do include that national championship. I'm fascinated to see how the NCAA comes out. You cannot have this long of an investigation into a cheating scandal that gave them that advantage and not vacate wins. That wouldn't make any sense. Wins have been vacated for less. So when you say Michigan will not vacate the title, that's fine. They may not have to vacate it, but the NCAA may do it for them. And I'm here to say this. If the NCAA comes out and they vacate wins and they take wins away, the national championship away, that doesn't matter. That's not going to take your guys' memory away from watching your team celebrate a national championship. We just watched our team win a national championship this past season. If the NCAA came out and said that Ohio State cheated to win this past national championship, it's no good. We're taking it out of the record books. Whatever. I don't care. I got to experience the joy of I got to go to the Rose Bowl this year. That was a bucket list opportunity. I went and did that. That was unbelievable. Get to watch the Buckeyes win the inaugural 12-team college football playoff national championship. You could take that away. You're not gonna go back and erase my memory of the experience that I had watching my team win a national championship and beating 4 top quality programs along the way to do so. So Michigan fans, I'm with you on that. They could take the title away. Who cares? Does that do anything to you? No, it doesn't do absolutely anything. You still won it. You were the best team that year. I'm with you on that. But this idea that wins won't be vacated, I have a very hard time buying into that or believing that as far as that's concerned. So we'll see what happens at the end of the day. But yes, 11 back when the notice of allegations came out back in August of 2024, there were 11 bullet points on that list. 6 of those were level 1. All of them regarding the sign stealing allegations and everything else. Sharon Moore, some of this goes back to, again, the deleted text messages. Now, some of the deleted text messages that came out weren't really related to that at all. But again, when he was required to turn over that information, he deleted the information that needed to be turned over, which begs the bigger question again. Okay, well, he deleted text messages, but none of them were incriminating, so who cares? It was still the act of deleting the text messages themselves. I mean, it is what it is at this point. I thought we had put this story in the past. I thought the next time that we talked about it, it would be when the NCAA came out and they actually handed down the punishment. We would get our see, we told you so. We'd get that in and out of the way. Michigan would probably respond with, oh, we beat you 4 straight times. And then we'd respond with, yeah, well, we won a national championship. And then you'd say you won a national championship. And then we'd say, yeah, but your championship has an asterisk. And then we'd go kick your ass in this upcoming season and win another national championship. And then Ohio State comes out on top when it's all said and done. That's how this story is going to unfold. That's how this movie is going to end when it's all said and done. It is what it is. I've said it 100 times. I am over this. It may not sound like I'm over it, but I'm over this storyline. I'm over the idea that they didn't do anything wrong. I'm over that. So Ron Howard, he weighs in too. Harbaugh knew that the heat was coming and pulled a Pete Carroll, let the replacement take the punishment. And this goes back to what I said. I remember Kevin and I having this debate. I thought Sherrone Moore looked like a sympathetic figure in the absence of Jim Harbaugh when he was filling in for Harbaugh during those suspensions. He's the head coach. He was the head coach of the program during that, and he had to face the music. I thought that Sherrone Moore would have been better off not taking the Michigan job. As much as he loved the program and loved the Michigan job itself, it was not going to be the same program that he took over that Harbaugh had. It was going to be a very messy situation. So that was the other red flag to why I believe that Sherrone Moore knew that he was deeper involved than what he was trying to lead on, because he would have been better off as the sympathetic figure that led Michigan in with all the distractions. He had to sit in and be the head coach of a team that would beat Ohio State, by the way. He has 2 wins over Ohio State. Last year was the first year of him being the official head coach of Michigan. He won it. They beat Ohio State with him filling in for Harbaugh during his suspension a couple years ago. The bottom line is, at the end of the day, he was the sympathetic figure that could have gone on to get a big-time head coaching job. Instead, he took the Michigan job, and now, Harbaugh got off the boat before it fully sank. Now, Moore is going to be on the Titanic when it reaches the bottom of the ocean. It's as simple as that. And that's his own problem. That's his own problem, and he could have avoided that, but he chose to stay because the delusion, when you repeat your lie over and over and over and you start to believe it, now he's put himself in that bad situation. Oh, well, I don't feel sorry for him whatsoever. But, yes, more self-imposed suspensions potentially coming. Again, nothing's been finalized. This was a report from On3 that came out earlier today. It'll be interesting to see what more comes of that. At the end of the day. All right. 937-518-1410. 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. Yeah, Roger, I don't know. Roger says, where's Shaw? I would love to know where Shaw is on this particular situation. I'm sure he'll come in as I change topics. That's how this is going to work. I'm going to switch over to the Reds, and then he's going to have all this stuff to say about Michigan. We'll see. We'll see. The Reds dropped 2-3 over the weekend. They look to stop the bleeding as they take on a streaking Atlanta Braves team who's playing some really good baseball right now. Atlanta will welcome in the Reds for 4. Then the Reds, after wrapping up a series with the Braves for 4 games, they'll go on for 3 games at Houston. They're going to do it, though, potentially without Austin Hayes, and the impact of Austin Hayes' absence has been fully on display since he left with the hamstring injury. We'll talk about all that and more when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. We'll be right back.
Your nose is for breathing. Your mouth is for eating.
right, and we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. The Cincinnati Reds will be in action coming up here later on tonight. They do open up a 4-game series with the Atlanta Braves. 6:45 pregame coverage begins. 7:15 will be the first pitch. Brady Singer will be on the mound. You'll have Brady Singer and Andrew Abbott on the mound for the Reds against the Braves in games 1 and 2. And then you'll have Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo to close it out in games 3 and 4 with Nick Martinez kicking off the series coming up later on in the week against the Houston Astros. Now, I think this is a very dangerous portion of the season for the Reds as we sit here right now. The Reds are 18 and 17. They are a game above 500. They're 3 games behind the Cubs in the Central. They are a game and a half in the wild card. Now you're probably saying, well, I don't really care about the wild card. I don't care about the standings right now. It's early May. And I've explained this a billion times on this show. I will constantly bring up the standings because I think pacing matters. Where are you in reference to how other teams are performing? Right now, the Central, I think, is their best bet at making the playoffs. They have to win the Central. Now, they've been right there neck and neck with the Cubs from the very beginning of the season, but the Cubs have been able to kind of keep them at an arm's length away for quite some time now. But 3 games is the lead that the Cubs have. It's the biggest lead that they've had on the Reds so far in 25. Now, as far as the wild card goes, the Reds are a game and a half out of that final wild card spot. They headed into that series with the Nationals holding on to that final wild card spot, and now they're a game and a half out. You win game 1 against the Nationals, then you get pummeled in games 2 and 3. Giving up 11 runs, 11-6 was the one game, and then 4-1 the other. Gave up 15 runs in the final 2 games after giving up 1 run with Hunter Green on the mound in game 1. Here's my concern when it comes to Cincinnati. I think this team is good. I don't think they're great. I don't think they're bad. Elliott was down on the Reds for off the bench today. When we did talk Reds, Elliott was as frustrated and pissed off about the Reds as I've seen him in quite some time. I think a lot of people share his sentiment. I think that to be that mad, though, I don't think I could actually sit here and say that this Reds team is horrible, because if they truly are horrible, we wouldn't be this angry about a team that's still a game above 500 that really hasn't been knocked out of anything yet. If you look at the pacing of the teams that are around the Reds, there's a lot of teams who are winning a few, losing a few, winning a few, losing a few. No one's pulling away from anybody. No one's dominating anybody at this point. I mean, hell, we're talking about the Reds who are 18 and 17. The San Diego Padres are 22 and 11. That's a 4-game difference between the 3.5 game difference between those. So it's not as if there are teams who are just pulling away. I mean, the Cleveland Guardians hold the top wildcard spot out of the American League. If the Reds, I mean, they have right now the Reds they would hold a American League wildcard spot if they were in the American League. The Guardians, a game and a half on the Reds at this point. It's not as if teams are pulling away from the Cincinnati Reds. They're not being buried and left behind yet. The Dodgers right now are 23 and 11. That's they have won 5 more games than the Reds, and the Reds, we can go through and count 3 games on the season so far that should have been the Reds, and woulda, coulda, shoulda. I get that. I know what happens if your aunt possesses a couple things that we've heard the joke many, many times. The bottom line is the Reds are not that far off, and the teams that you think are so far ahead of them, they're not as far off as you think. So that's the point I'm trying to make, is we can't sit here and say that this Reds team is horrible and then be mad about where they're and then be mad about where they're at, not living up to our expectations. Well, you only have expectations for a team that you believe is pretty solid. So when you say this Reds team is horrible, you don't truly mean that this Reds team is horrible. It's a team that's just not playing up to their ability right now. They're one of the best hitting teams in baseball according to the numbers. One of the best pitching teams in baseball according to the numbers. And what I'm getting frustrated with is that you have baseball nerds that all they love to do is argue with you regarding the numbers, but then want to ignore the numbers when it comes to who is this Cincinnati Reds team. I will never tell you that this is a World Series caliber team, because it is not, but they are a playoff contender. You can't have the pitching that the Reds do and the hitting that they do and tell me that they're not a playoff contender. I will say where this weakness is for the Reds that does not come up in the box score. I think that where they lack a lot of toughness is their mental toughness. And there's nothing in a box score that you could track mental toughness. I will say, though, when things get bad, they unravel very quickly for them. And that's my concern about this series heading in with the Braves. This has been a mentally weak team this season, and I thought that would be a stronger suit with Terry Francona leading the way, I guess. And I thought it was trending in that direction. At times, they've done a pretty good job with Terry Francona of not letting things snowball out of control. We've just seen situations in games where it does snowball pretty quickly. Alexis Diaz's last game, the Reds had a 1-0 lead, and then Alexis Diaz walks a batter and then gives up 3 straight home runs. Game's done. We saw it yesterday. It's 1-1. The Reds, Ellie De La Cruz, we thought hits a home run to make it 3-1. They wave it off. It's like the Reds just pouted and hung their head, and the next thing you know, you bring in a guy that's pitched lights out all season in Graham Ashcraft, and he gives up a couple runs. He gets blasted. He gives up a big old home run like he wasn't throwing with the same velocity that he was last week when we were talking about a guy that was throwing in the upper 90s, 100s. When something slightly goes wrong in a game, the team unravels. Where they've been good at is being able to rebound. Like when the series doesn't go their way, they've been able to rebound from that. But when anything slightly goes wrong in a game, they unravel, and they unravel quickly. And that's the problem that I have with the Cincinnati Reds so far in 2025. Things unravel quickly. And that scares me. Now, luckily, things unravel quickly in games. They have not unraveled quickly when it comes to the season. There's been a couple times where I thought coming off of a bad series that the Reds would just collapse and fold, and they have not. I would like to think that tonight, that when they get this series started with the Atlanta Braves, that it's not going to be a carryover, a hangover, if you will, from the National Series. I don't expect that they're going to go out there and just play dead for the Braves and just basically hand it to them. Brady Singer has been lights out. This is a big series for Brady Singer. This is a big series for the Reds. Because I do believe that a week from today, my tone on this team could be completely different. I do believe a week from today, we could be talking about a Cincinnati Reds team that the season is going to feel like it's over. You guys may feel like it's over now, which that's typical fans, but I believe a week from today, I don't care what the numbers show as far as how they're in it, they will be out of it if they drop this series against the Braves and the Astros. You basically lost a series against the Cardinals. I know you split it, but that should be a series win. There should be no splitting a series with the Cardinals. You know, I know that you swept Colorado. Obviously, you took care of business against the Rockies. You should. The Rockies are horrible, but you shouldn't split with the Cardinals. You should come away. They should have came away with the 3-1 series win. That was one of those games where Alexis Diaz just gets absolutely blasted. Things unraveled quickly, right? You lose the series against the Cardinals, and then you go into the series against the Nationals. You lose that. What you can't do is go on the road for 4 against Atlanta and drop 3 of 4, and then go on the road for 3 against a very good Astros team and drop 2 of 3. That's what you can't do. So this week is a big opportunity because I think we're going to learn a lot about the Reds over the next 7 games. If the Reds truly are what I think they are, and I think they are a good team, I don't think they're great. I definitely don't think they're horrible, though. But I think, as dumb as this sounds, it's a 162-game season, and I'm going to put an entire 162-game season on the Reds over the next 7 games. If the Reds, they cannot, they have to win one of these series. They have to beat the Braves or the Astros in at least one of these series. Otherwise, I'm going to possibly announce a week from today that this team is done. Possibly a week from today, I might announce that this team is done if they can't take care of business against the Braves or the Astros. I'm asking for one series win against one of those 2 contenders so that we can feel as if there is something there. I think Atlanta's the more important one for obvious reasons. Obviously, in the National League, I think that's very important when we talk about the significance of the Atlanta Braves and what that means for the Reds. I think that's crucial. The fact that I think that the Reds obviously have to win their division to make the playoffs, but the Braves are 15-18. They've won 6 of their last 10. They just got done in a series against the Dodgers. I mean, I know they dropped 2 or 3 against the Dodgers, but they're coming off they come off a 4-3 win over the Dodgers right now. They're feeling themselves. They're feeling pretty good. They're right there in the mix of things for the wild card as well. That's who the Reds are going to be battling it out with for the rest of the way. At the end of the day, this is a very important series for the Reds because if they drop this series and they let the hangover continue coming out of that series that we just talked about with the Nationals and the Cardinals, that means they're letting it snowball and get away. And I don't want to see this team snowball and have the season get away from them. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Ron Howard says they have played enough games now. This is who they are. Hot, cold, good team, not consistent. They're an 80 win team. Yeah, and look, 82 wins. I mean, like, that's the thing. That's a 500 ball club. This is going to sound like a compliment, and it's not. The Reds are a 500 ball club. This is what 500 ball clubs do, as Ron highlighted that in that post there on Facebook. They're going to win a few, lose a few, and they're going to take us on this emotionally draining roller coaster ride of a season. And that's fine, because as a sports talk show host, content-wise, it's always going to be fresh material. I'm going to come in and talk about a couple bad losses and the season's over. Then they're going to go win a couple big series and games. I'm going to feel like we're back, and we're all going to go on this little journey together. I will take that over the David Bell runs that we had, where this team was just out of it by the end of April, mid-May, June to begin with. The Reds are still in this. They're 18-17. The way some people are acting is as if this team is just the Colorado Rockies. The way people are acting right now is if that this team is just one of the worst in baseball. I mean, you have the White Sox, who are 10-24. You have the Angels, who are 13-20. The Orioles are 13-20. The Orioles had expectations this year. They're 13-20. The Twins are 15-20. The Rockies are 6-28. The Pirates are 12-23. The Marlins are 13-20. And we're sitting here pissed off and acting like the sky is falling because our team at 18-17, which is a game and a half out of the final playoff spot as we sit here right now, we're acting as if the sky is falling. We have got to get it together. I know we're pissed off. We're angry. We're impatient. I just don't know where the impatience is coming from. I don't know where the frustration is coming from. You guys spent all offseason telling me this team is bad. If you told me this team was bad all offseason, and now the team in your eyes is bad now, what are you emotionally triggered by? You were right. People love being right. Why are you mad that you're right? You should be saying, I told you so, Kenner. But you're not. You're just bitching and complaining and furious, and you're making points as if you're the first one to say it and as if no one else has said this before. The Reds are inconsistent. 18-17 is not bad. A couple games in there with the Cubs, they're not bad. Game and a half out of a final playoff spot, they're not bad. They're not great. They're not a World Series contender as we sit here in early May. But I'll be damned to sit here and talk about a team that's top 12 in every major hitting statistical category out there. They're top 7 or top 8 in every major pitching statistical category out there. They're going to have a good chunk of guys that are going to be competing for all-star nods this season. I mean, you look at Gavin Lux, you look at Austin Hayes. If Austin Hayes could play enough games, Gavin Lux and Austin Hayes, Jose Trevino, Ellie De La Cruz, Hunter Green. I mean, Pagan, there's going to be 6 legit players for the Reds that are going to be competing for an all-star bid. What up, Rick? Rick says that what I like to call the Reds is consistently inconsistent. Yes. And we could be angry about that. I'm angry that they're consistently inconsistent. That's my frustration, is they keep getting my hopes up, and then when I go to sit down, they yank the chair out from underneath me. I'm fine with that generalization of this team, Rick. And Rick, thank you for chiming in. I appreciate you tuning in and listening and watching and interacting. I appreciate you. But Rick says they're consistently inconsistent. If that's your analysis of this team, fine. What I don't want to have from people is, I'm tired of hearing from people that they're bad. I don't think they're bad. This isn't a bad team. They're just not. They're not bad. I'm not being a homer. You guys know me. I'm a very negative person as it is. I'm being positive when it comes to this Reds team. There's too much good with this roster. You got Tyler Stevenson back over the weekend, by the way, who had a home run, has a couple RBIs, a couple extra base hits. He had a great welcome back series. Spencer Steer, who I was ready to give up on and say, put him on the IL, for goodness sakes. Spencer Steer, all of a sudden, in his last 12 games, he has seven multi-hit games. He's striking out at a very low rate. He's not striking out. He's putting the bat on the ball. He's putting the ball in play. He's getting on base. He's hitting the ball to the ballpark. He's driving runs in. He's scoring runs. Spencer Steer is heating up. Trevino is one of the best hitting catchers in baseball. Austin Wynns has been a great success story. Gavin Lux, one of the best hitters in baseball. Espinal, he may not have a set position, but my God, he's making Terry Francona's life hell because he has to find a way to keep this guy in the lineup because all he does is hit. Hunter Green's a Cy Young candidate. Nick Lodolo's up and down, but you have a very solid pitcher there. Brady Singer, I'm excited to see him on the mound tonight. He's very, very good. Andrew Abbott, probably the best number 5 pitcher in baseball. Pagan, I mean, everyone freaked out. I mean, if you would have told me in the offseason that Alexis Diaz was going to flame out and they would have optioned him away less than a month into the season, I would have said, man, the Reds bullpen is screwed. The Reds bullpen has been so solid. Graham Ashcraft is, and I know maybe not a good time because he's coming off of that tough weekend, but Graham Ashcraft is perfectly repositioned himself into a bullpen role after being a starter his entire MLB career, Reds career. You have Terry Francona as a manager. There's way too much good with this team to sit here and tell me that this is a bad team. The Reds are not bad. I don't want to hear that. I don't agree with it. Hour number 2 coming up next. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. We'll be right back.
Are you interested in learning more about the world of digital marketing? Looking to grow your business online but don't know where to start?
in Kettering. You're listening to Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
You want hot takes? No, I'm not going to apologize to Ryan Day. Everything we said about Ryan Day up into the playoffs was true.
Not bad. Come on, Kenner. You can do better than that.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, hour number 2. We are off and rolling here in the Miami Valley. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Before we dive into hour number 2 of the show, I just want to remind everybody that you need to stop on out at one of your local neighborhood Frickers for their frickin' lunch combos for $10.99. The frickin' lunch combo features many options such as frickin' chicken chunks, cheeseburgers, the charbroiled chicken wrap, and the frickin' chicken wrap. You also get a side and a drink, all for $10.99. The frickin' lunch combo is available Monday through Friday between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Dine in or carry out, of course. So make sure you check out, again, the frickin' lunch combo special for $10.99 at your local neighborhood Frickers Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and take advantage of that great deal for lunch. Appreciate Frickers sponsor the show. We're going to be live at Frickers. We're going to be live at different Frickers locations every month, and we'll be announcing our next one coming up here shortly. But I love taking the show out on the road and being able to kind of meet some of the listeners. So again, be listening out for that. You could also head to wingam.com, the station website, and we have our full live broadcast schedule there of where we'll be live next. The full schedule is live up there right now, again, at wingam.com. All right, I do want to talk about this. We spent some time on it earlier today on Off the Bench. And it's interesting because Kevin and I have talked about some of this stuff in the past from time to time about retiring numbers and how you honor your team's history, how you honor your team's all-time greats. You know, how do you go about doing that? What is the right way to do it? And I thought, I'm 5'5", unathletic, fat, all that fun stuff. Okay. I'll, to sit here and act like I had any chance of being a pro athlete. I've never pretended that, nor ever will I. But if I was an all-time great athlete, college, pros, whatever, how would I want to be commemorated for my greatness, if you will? If I was a great D1 athlete or a great, NFL player, NBA player, Major League Baseball player, whatever, okay? How would I want my former school or my former team to honor my greatness and what I brought to the table for? I don't think I would ever want my number to be shut down, eliminated, and vanished from my teams moving forward. I would love it for whenever someone sees my number that they automatically associate it with my playing career. Now, again, if you're just tuning in and you're only catching bits and pieces of this, I promise you, at no point has Kinner framed this as me talking about my great athletic career. I don't have any great athletic career stories as far as that's concerned. That's besides the point. So anyways, is what it is. All I'm saying is if I'm a great athlete and it comes time to my school or my team comes to me and says, we're going to retire a number, I would respectfully ask them not to. I would respectfully say, I don't want you to retire my number. I just want you to be selective with who my number goes to. I want when you see my number to think of me. I want when you see my number for it to be a sign of greatness. Therefore, if a prospect is coming in, if you draft a great player or you're recruiting a great player at the college ranks, I want to dangle that number in front of that athlete and say, hey, by the way, we think so much of what you're going to be at our school. We're going to make this number openly available to you. I think that's great. I think in the NFL, the NBA, hey, we just got one of the biggest free agents in the world. We would never let just anybody wear this number. But because you are the great athlete that you are, the great player that you are, we are going to give you this number. It reminds me of the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys do something similar. I heard an interview with Michael Irvin years ago where it was when Des Bryant was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, and they right away said he was going to be number 88. And some sports talk hosts, around the country didn't like that. They're like, Michael Irvin, do you have a problem with that? Like 88, when you think of 88 in Dallas, you think of Michael Irvin. And Michael Irvin said, and this is where it got me thinking this way, Michael Irvin said, yeah, you're right. You think of me. And the best thing for the team that he loves, the Dallas Cowboys, the best thing for them is if they look at number 88 and they no longer think of him, that means they've drafted someone better than him, and that can only mean good things for the Dallas Cowboys. By the way, when you see number 88, you still don't think of Dez Bryant. You still think of Michael Irvin. Dez Bryant was okay. He wasn't Michael Irvin, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, it's going to take a special number 88, a special player in Dallas, to come in, wear number 88, and make you forget about Michael Irvin. And he knows that. And he also knows that if there is a player that comes in to make you forget Michael Irvin, that means they were a hell of a player, and that means the team that he loves, the Dallas Cowboys, probably won a lot of games because of whoever wore number 88. I love that approach. It's almost a way to commemorate your former great players who wore that number, and also put the spotlight and almost like a badge of honor for those who are currently great in wearing that number. I love that approach. I just don't like the idea of retiring numbers and then you just never see that number again. It disappears. That number should be a part of this franchise's history and tell a story throughout the upcoming history, if you will, of that franchise or that program. You know, and that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to retiring numbers, you know. And like I said, to me, you want to honor greatness, put a statue up of players. Right? Like you want to show the great, you go to Great American Ballpark and look at all of the statues around Great American Ballpark. And if I'm not mistaken, I think some of those numbers are probably, you don't have access to, but you don't wear number 14 with the Cincinnati Reds. But can you imagine if there was a player that's from Cincinnati that was drafted by the Reds coming up through the system? He's one of the top prospects in all of Major League Baseball. You know what I mean? Like, what happens if that's the case and the Reds say, you know what? We want you to re-sign with us, and we're going to give you we're going to don number 14 on you because that's how much you mean. That would be fantastic. But, Pete Rose is honored with the statue outside Great American Ballpark. Joe Morgan, the list goes on and on of the all-time greats. The greats have been honored, whether it's the Reds Hall of Fame, numbers retired, whether it's the statues outside. Their greatness has been resembled in some capacity. That's kind of where I'm at when it comes to that. To localize this a bit more, probably one of the bigger from a Dayton Flyers basketball perspective, right? Am I wrong on this? And put it in the chat. I mean, I guess Obi. I guess Obi Toppin would probably be the biggest fan favorite. DeRon Holmes is pretty damn popular. But am I wrong in saying, like, by the way, this isn't like when these type of topics happen, it kind of forces you to say something bad about others. That's not what I want this to be. But, like, I still feel like, for me, since I've lived in Dayton, the most popular player for the Dayton Flyers was Scoochie Smith. Am I wrong in saying that? Like, Obi Toppin, no doubt, right? Like, Obi Toppin, as far as I'm concerned, obviously is going to be sky high in popularity, when it comes to the most fan favorite player, if you will. But I still feel like Scoochie just had a different vibe around him. I think Scoochie is more interesting because Scoochie wasn't an NBA player. He wasn't a lottery pick. Scoochie was around for quite a few years. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Scoochie, to me, is one of the biggest fan favorites in the history of the program. I feel like him wearing number 11. I feel like Obi Toppin wearing number 1. I feel like DeRon Holmes and his number. I feel like those numbers should not be worn by just any walk-on at Dayton. No offense. I know the walk-ons, the Worleys of the world. There's been some great walk-on stories at UD. I just feel like nobody should wear those numbers unless they are potential all-time greats at UD. To wear number 11 at UD, you better be pretty damn good. To wear number 1 at UD, you better be pretty damn good. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean by those numbers. The numbers carry so much weight. So Abdul Carter, drafted number 3 overall by the New York Giants. It's time to pick a number. And he requests, obviously, the number of, Lawrence Taylor, LT. He wants LT's number 56. Lawrence Taylor says, well, he denied it. He denied it. He told him, no, you can't have my number. Go pick a number and make that your number. Go make it a number that generations from now, talents that are drafted are knocking on your door, asking if you care if they wear it. He told Abdul Carter no. And some people feel a certain way about that. Phil Simms, number 11 for the Giants, then granted permission to Abdul Carter to keep number 11, which is what he wore at Penn State. But then the family of of Sims gets into play, and they don't want him to wear that number. So now he can't wear number 11. And a lot of people, including like Rob Gronkowski, came out and they were mad at the fact they were mad at the fact that Abdul Carter even asked LT to wear that. Guys, think about this. Like, there have been some dominant pass rushers in the league. You think about Aaron Donald. I mean, Myles Garrett with the Cleveland Browns is pretty damn good, right? None of them, as dominant as they were, nobody has had the debate. Is Myles Garrett better than Lawrence Taylor? When you look at Aaron Donald, as when he was in the peak domination, he's an all-time great. Still weren't talking about the fact that, man, is he a bigger threat than LT? No, that's the level of where LT is. Keith Byers has talked about it. Reggie White, he talked about Reggie White on his end too, but like, there's been so many greats. LT is the man. Bill Belichick's come out and said that's the best player he's ever coached, including Tom Brady, who's won how many Super Bowls for him? Many people criticize Abdul Carter for even asking for the number. That was a problem. He should even have thought about asking for it. But I thought that was an interesting little thing that happened out of the NFL. I'm not a fan of retiring numbers. I think numbers should have a meaning to them. I think teams should be selective of who gets the numbers. Even if Lawrence Taylor's number 56 wasn't retired, the Giants should look at Abdul Carter and say, okay, you want number 50, not just any pass rusher. It's not like some pass rusher taken in the 4th round wants to wear number 56. You know what? It is what it is. So I just think teams, I'm not a fan of retiring numbers. Just let teams dictate and be aware of, okay, is this player worth giving that number to? And if I give you that number, that's going to be a sign that you are worth the damn. That's going to be a sign that there's expectations and shoes that you have to fill and expectations you have to live up to. All right, I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Do you like when teams retire jersey numbers? Do you think all-time greats should have their jersey retired, their number retired? Or do you agree with me that numbers shouldn't be retired? Teams should just be selective with who get those numbers moving forward. 937-518-1410. 937-518-1410. Should teams just be selective of who wears numbers, certain numbers, versus retiring all-time great numbers? Whether LT's number is retired or not, if the Giants felt that he was worthy of being number 56, then so be it. But the number's retired. You can't even have that conversation. But if Abdul Carter is supposed to be the face of a new generation for the Giants and to be the next big dominant defensive player, every time the Giants have been a Super Bowl contender, they have had one of the best defensive players in the league on their team. Whether it was Strahan, whether it's LT, you go down the list. They've always had a defensive presence. And you pass that number on to him and say, okay, you're the face of our defense now. Go lead the way. I don't know. 937-518-1410. We'll be right back.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
Well, the forecast says shower is likely 50 tonight.
right, and we are back. Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. I let it be known a little bit ago that every month we take our show live on the road to various Frickers locations. And the one that we have coming up, we will be at the Huber Heights location coming up on May 16th. Okay, on May 16th, the show will be live at the Frickers location in Huber Heights, 3 to 5 p.m. It'll be myself, Kev Nash, will be taking the show live to the Huber Heights location, the Huber Heights Frickers location on May 16th. Obviously, still, a week from this Friday. But just keep that in mind. We have that coming up for you later on. Last part of the show, we opened up hour number 2 talking about the significance of jersey retirements and retiring numbers of players. And I said, if I'm a former great player, if I'm an athlete that was an all-time great at my university or for, my NFL team, NBA team, and I had my program or my school or my NFL team or whatever come up to me and say, hey, we want to, we appreciate everything you did for us during your time here. We want to retire your number. I would respectfully say, I don't want my number retired, but I would be very respectful. I would really appreciate if you would be very selective of who would wear my number moving forward. Just like kind of like a sign of respect to incoming great players. Like, you don't want a walk-on wearing an all-time great number. No offense to those walk-ons, none whatsoever, because, by the way, if I had any chance of ever playing Division I sports, it would be as a walk-on, and I still wasn't even remotely close. That's disrespectful to walk-ons to just say that I could be a walk-on. I'm just saying that would have been my only chance at ever being an athlete at that level. Let's just be clear. But I would want my number to still be a part of the team's history moving forward. I wouldn't want to not erase it, but I wouldn't want to make it to where it's never a part of the team's story moving forward. And all of this started really coming from what happened with Lawrence Taylor and the Giants and Abdul Carter. And that may sound hypocritical here. I don't like that numbers are retired, but if your number is retired, it takes a set to reach out. If you are Abdul Carter, it takes a set to reach out to ask him to wear that number, because that number better go to a guy that is going to go into the league and dominate. And as much as I wanted the Browns to take Abdul Carter, as much as I love Abdul Carter, on the scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that Abdul Carter would be a guy that Lawrence Taylor, if he was willing to give up his number to come out of retirement for, would he be the guy? He has all the physical tools and makeup of a guy that should be dominant in the NFL. But so is Jadeveon Clowney. Imagine if Jadeveon Clowney was a New York Giant. Imagine if Jadeveon Clowney, who was everyone was drooling over Jadeveon Clowney coming out of college, right? Imagine if he was a Giant, asked for LT's number. LT said, yes, you could have the number. You know how underwhelming Jadeveon Clowney has been compared to what his expectations were? Clowney's a very good NFL player. Don't get me wrong. He's very solid. But as solid as Clowney has been, and he's not been great or elite, he's just been a solid NFL player. You imagine if LT gave up his number for a player of that caliber? Who knows if Abdul Carter, is he going to come in and be a dominant pass? Is he going to be Myles Garrett, or is he going to be more Jadeveon Clowney? And I'm here to tell you, as dominant as Myles Garrett has been, I still don't look at him as an LT, and I love Myles Garrett. Anyways, I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show. So we got to talking about this on Off the Bench earlier. Like, imagine if such and such players drafted by the Bengals and wanted to wear number. And then we started looking at it. The Bengals they only have one player with a retired jersey. And I think it's number 56. I think 56 is the only number that's retired for the Cincinnati Bengals. And the guy's name is Bob Johnson. Bob Johnson was the very first player ever drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals. So therefore he was the very first player drafted by the Bengals. So therefore they went ahead and retired his number. His number was actually retired while he was still playing. But think of all the great players that have played in Cincinnati since. You have Ken Anderson, who's won an MVP. Ken Anderson's been on this show before. I love Ken Anderson. Ken is a guy that number, you're talking about a guy that, and by the way, led the team to multiple. I know he didn't win them, but led the team to multiple Super Bowls. Obviously had a ton of success with Ken Anderson. He won an MVP with the Cincinnati Bengals. They haven't retired his number. The face of the franchise, I think, when you mention the Cincinnati Bengals, I think Joe Burrow now has probably, because of his popularity, I think now Bengals, Joe Burrow, it goes hand in hand. But before Joe Burrow, it was Anthony Munoz. When you thought of the Cincinnati Bengals, you thought of Anthony Munoz, and he hasn't played in decades, right? Anthony Munoz doesn't have his number retired with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I don't mind that. And we've never seen it. Now, to be fair, and Jacob brought this up on Off the Bench earlier, the Bengals may not have actually come out and announced that we have retired Anthony Munoz's number, but Anthony Munoz's number has never been worn since then. You know, you look at 85. 85 is a number that's been passed around from a couple good – they kind of do it a little bit like Dallas, like 80. You better be pretty damn good if you're going to wear 85. Now, when I think of the Cincinnati Bengals, I see the number one on a football player. I think of, obviously, Jamar Chase. I think of Uno, right? I'm not even a Bengals fan, or am I? I'm not really sure the rules, how that carries over to this show from Off the Bench. But anyway, besides the point, I think when I see a player wear number one, I immediately think of Jamar Chase and the Cincinnati Bengals. And you'd have to think moving forward when Jamar Chase is done with the Cincinnati Bengals, look how dominant of a wide receiver he is. Again, the Triple Crown winner, all this. I mean, he is the guy in Cincinnati along with Joe Burrow. It's going to take, I mean, look how dominant of a wide receiver Jamar Chase is. How good of a wide receiver are the Bengals going to have to get moving forward to even be worthy of wearing number one? How good, I mean, think about 20, 30 years from now, if the Bengals have the number one pick in the 2050 draft. It's the 2050 draft. The Bengals have the number one overall pick. They desperately need a quarterback. There's some quarterback that's coming out that just won a Heisman, undefeated national champion, just like Joe Burrow. Do the Bengals, who've never retired Burrow's number, do they hand him number 9? I mean, that player has to be pretty damn special to be gifted the number 9. So I don't know, but either way. All right. Justin Kinner Show, 1410 on ESPN Radio. We got Reds baseball coming up later on tonight. 7:15, the first pitch, 6:45 pregame coverage begins right here on Dayton's radio home for Cincinnati Reds baseball, 1410 Wing AM. We got a lot more to get into when it comes to the Reds. I talked earlier about the Reds. People need to stop saying that the Reds are bad. The Reds are not a bad team. The Reds are not a bad team. You may feel differently, but I'm telling you right now. I know we live in our silo when it comes to baseball. Has become very regional. You want to see bad teams? There's 10 teams that I consider really bad in Major League Baseball. The Reds aren't even close to that. But we talked about that earlier in the show. We could dig that back up again. And I am going to get back into the Sharon Moore, Michigan saga that just continues. Every time I think that storyline is officially ended, every time I think that storyline is officially wrapped up, something happens that just pulls me back in. And we'll talk about that more coming up in a bit. But the Cincinnati Reds in action coming up here later on tonight. They have, a tough one with the Atlanta Braves as they get a 4-game series underway in Atlanta. We'll be right back.
Hello, it's John Kozik, founder and president of TurboTrack Realty. Do you want to sell your property? However, you need a little help getting through the process? Let's say you have years of belongings in the home. It needs a lot of updating.
Radio. All right, and we are back. We don't talk a lot of association on the show. From time to time we do, but the Cleveland Cavaliers, second round of the NBA playoffs, they have the Indiana Pacers. Dayton Flyers Obi Toppin and the Indiana Pacers, and the Pacers came away with a very physical win yesterday. The Cavaliers lose home court advantage, and now not only do they lose home court advantage, they may have lost a player, maybe two, and could potentially put them at risk of losing this series. 121-112 the final. Pacers over the Cavaliers in game one yesterday. Obviously a big performance from Tyrese Halliburton, who Halliburton's been a talking point for a lot, but for quite a lot of reasons. Obviously his dad in that scuffle last week with Giannis Antetokounmpo and all that fun stuff. But either way, most importantly, the Pacers get out to a 1-0 lead in that series against the Cavaliers. Dayton Flyers Obi Toppin played in 15 minutes of that game one matchup. 7 points in 15 minutes, 3 of 6 from the floor. Was 1 of 2 from behind the 3-point line. Did pull down 5 rebounds, a couple of assists, a steal, a block. Got to give Obi credit. He didn't play a lot of minutes, but 15 minutes, he maximized his time out on the floor. Obi Toppin again, 7 points, 5 rebounds, a couple of assists, a steal, all in 15 minutes of play. So the Cavaliers will have a chance to even the series tomorrow in game 2 at home. But, man, they were already without they were already without Darius Garland. Now, don't even know if you'll have Garland back for game 2, but a couple status updates for a couple of key players. Defensive Player of the Year, Evan Mobley, rolled his ankle late in that game, who was seen hobbling, late in that game. Is questionable already for game 2 tomorrow. And then, of course, the big trade deadline acquisition when they went out and got DeAndre Hunter. That right thumb is pretty banged up. That's a big injury right there. He's questionable for tomorrow. The Cavaliers could potentially be without DeAndre Hunter, Evan Mobley, and Darius Garland against a Pacer team that they play about as fast as any team in the league. They get that ball and they go, and they play fast defensively as well. They want you to play fast. They force you to play fast. They speed you up. They take advantage of the turnovers. They get the ball and go. When the Cavs started to look tired yesterday, Okoro, by the way, tired of Okoro. Especially because of Okoro. When I see Okoro on the Cleveland Cavaliers, I see what should be Obi Toppin. Remember, they picked Okoro over Obi Toppin, but that's a conversation for later. But the Cavaliers will have a chance to even the series. But, man, a tough task. The Pacers were able to get home court advantage with the game 1 win yesterday. We'll see if they could take a 2-0 series lead back to Indianapolis later on this week. But a big game 2 tomorrow. We'll be keeping an eye on some of those status updates for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Nonetheless, tomorrow, no show tomorrow. I know it's been no show tomorrow. We'll be right now. Tomorrow's the media day over at Muirfield for the memorial coming up, and Trace and I from Chatterbox will be heading over there in the morning, and of course the rain if it holds up. But we'll be there we'll be in Columbus most of the day for that. So unfortunately, no show tomorrow. We'll be back on Wednesday to hopefully talk about the Cavaliers with that. I shared on Off the Bench earlier, Muirfield, getting a chance to golf there is just a once in a lifetime opportunity. I've been fortunate to have a few opportunities to golf out there. And it's the only time I've ever had a chance to golf, with a caddy. Okay. And I know I'm bad at golf. I've never pretended to be good at golf, but sometimes it's like you like to, I feel like I'm golfing well. I don't think I'm good at golf, but there's times where I'm like, oh, I'm golfing pretty good. And then you go out to Muirfield where they give you a caddy, and the caddy, certain holes are telling you, all right, you're going to want to use your 7 here. You're going to want to aim here. You're going to want to take some off here. By hole 3, hole 4, when the caddy stops giving me advice and stop giving me certain clubs to use, basically he's acknowledging, yeah, this guy stinks. There's nothing more of an ego blow than when the caddy is done even giving you advice on what to do, because the guy just knows, or gal just knows, no matter what they tell you, you're not a good enough golfer to compete out there. But it is a great experience and an opportunity to go out there and play a very challenging course. Hell, the rough, they don't even cut the rough at all until literally the day before the memorial, because they grow that out all spring. So it's like literally impossible. Half the time I get in the rough, I'm just getting my hybrid out and I'm just trying to punch her back into the fairway just to set up a better shot. More times than not, I hit her right back in the rough and we start the process all over again. But yeah, no show tomorrow. But we'll be back at it on Wednesday, and hopefully hopefully talking about a Cavs team that evened the series up at a game apiece before heading back to Indianapolis as far as that goes. But the Pacers, they got Pascal Siakam at the deadline last year, and that was a good get. I mean, the Pacers are just a sneaky good team. The Pacers have always been a sneaky good team, even going back to when LeBron was with the Cavs the second time, technically, even the first time, but the second time. Always just a good enough team to win that 50-plus games. Always a good enough team to make a series challenging. The fear, though, now is that they're not just making this series challenging. They may win this series. And it won't all be because the Cavs are without a couple key contributors. The Pacers are a good team. I don't think they're good enough to come out of the East as far as win the Eastern Conference Finals or anything, but they're not an easy out. They're not an easy out by any means as far as that's concerned. All right, it's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers, 1410 ESPN Radio, Dayton's radio home for Reds baseball. Reds will be in action coming up later on tonight, as we talked about. They got the Atlanta Braves game 1. Brady Singer going to be on the mound tonight leading this series off. But as far as the lineup goes, TJ Friedel will get the start in center field. He'll be back to yesterday. We saw Matt McClain bat in the leadoff spot. A lot of people thought that was Terry Francona's way of moving McClain around in the lineup to try to kind of squeeze some kind of production out of him. TJ Friedel was off yesterday. It's the only reason they had to find a new leadoff hitter. TJ Friedel's been great in that spot all season. TJ Friedel back in the leadoff spot. He'll get the start in center field. Matt McClain back in the 2 spot, and he'll get the start at second base. Shortstop, Ellie De La Cruz, he'll bat third as usual. Gavin Lux back in the lineup today, the designated hitter. He'll bat fourth. Spencer Steer, who's played, 3 or 4 now consecutive games at first base, he's going to bat fifth. Tyler Stevenson back behind the plate tonight catching. He is batting 6th tonight. Fraley in right field batting 7th. Espinal at third base batting 8th. And Callahan getting another start in his young career in left field batting 9th. One more time, your lineup for the Reds Braves tonight: Friedel, McClain, De La Cruz, your 1, 2, and 3 hitters. Your 4, 5, and 6 hitters belong to Gavin Lux, Spencer Steer, and Tyler Stevenson. Fraley, Espinal, and Callahan will be your 7, 8, and 9 hitters. Again, Brady Singer on the mound, 7:15. I said 45 earlier, I believe. My apologies. 7:15 will be the first pitch. 6:45 coverage begins right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. So I to close out the Reds portion, and then we're going to get back to Sharon Moore in Michigan here in a second. I keep hearing people are so, like Elliott today was so down on the Reds, and I'm not blaming anyone who's down on the Reds. The Reds are a lot. They are frustrating. But that's as emotionally beat up as I've seen my guy Elliott in a long time when it comes to the Reds. Like it's to the point to where you want to tell yourself you're not going to buy in. You buy in, and then they yank the chair out from underneath you. It's frustrating. I'm here to tell you, though, he said that the Reds are a bad team a lot today. And I'm seeing a lot of people say that this team is no good. I'm here to tell you right now, you cannot say the Reds are a bad team. The Reds are a good team. I think the Reds are a good team. Now, when you hear me say that, you're rolling your eyes. Oh, they're Dayton's radio home of the Reds, so he has to say that. That is not true. I've beat up on the Reds for many, many years, and we've been the home of the Reds well before I even got to WING. So that's not it at all. I'm the biggest Buckeye fan in the world. Half the Buckeye fans think I hate my team. Half the Reds fans think I'm not a fan of the Reds. They think I'm a Guardians fan because I'm a Browns fan. That, like, a lot of times people can't even tell the teams I'm a fan of because I'm critical of all the teams that I'm a fan of, not a fan of. Equal hate across the board, if that's what you want to call it. But when it comes to this Reds team, you can't tell me that this team is bad. I'm not telling you that they're great. I'm not telling you that they're going to win a World Series. But I am telling you that they are good. You can't have 6 players in a lineup that consistently hit 290 or better. You can't tell me that a team that is 12th and that has hit the 12th most home runs in baseball, that's top 7 in pretty much every major offensive statistical category. You can't tell me that a team that is top 8 in every major pitching statistical category. You can't tell me that a team that's a game above 500 at 18 and 17, second in the division, a game and a half out of the wild card, 3 games out of the division at this point. You can't tell me that that is a bad baseball team. You can't tell me that when we get to the All-Star break, that when we get to the All-Star game, you can't tell me that a team that has 6 legitimate contenders to be on that All-Star roster, you can't tell me that a team with potential, that guys that are going to be competing for an All-Star spot, you can't tell me it's a bad baseball team. You have Gavin Lux, who is a new addition, who's getting everyday time now with the Cincinnati Reds team, who's splitting a lot of time with the Dodgers last year, one of the best hitters in baseball. All right, you look at the fact that, right now, up and down this lineup, the depth that they have, You look, whether it's offense, whether it's pitching. You have Jose Trevino, arguably statistically the best hitting catcher in baseball, has been the ultimate replacement for Tyler Stevenson, who came back over the weekend, by the way. They have depth at catcher. They have depth in middle infield. You could say what you want, but the fact that they have guys who sometimes it frustrates me, but the Reds' strength is how versatile they are. They have guys that can play multiple positions and bounce around, whether it's Spencer Steer playing in left field, playing at first base. Tyler Stevenson can catch, can play at first base. Espinal can play in the outfield. He can play at third base. He can play at second base. Gavin Lux can play at second. He can play at short. He can play in the outfield. He can play at third. You have Nick Martinez, who got a $21.5 million qualifying offer that the Reds obviously matched, and they went it, and he accepted it. He's a guy that has had 3 straight very, very, very good outings. I don't like to call them quality starts because there's an actual definition for a quality start. So he hasn't been the definition of quality starts, but he's high quality production out of Nick Martinez. His last 3 starts living up to the money that they gave him. And the advanced analytics show that Nick Martinez is actually last 3 starts back to as good as what he was last year. And that's a guy that could be your best bullpen pitcher or one of your top starters. And he's proven that right now. Graham Ashcraft has accepted his bullpen role about as perfect as you could possibly imagine. I know he didn't look great over the weekend, but it doesn't matter. We're a month and some change in. You're not going to be perfect every time you go out there. Graham Ashcraft has been amazing. Pagan has been fantastic. Alexis Diaz stunk. That's fine. Unfortunately, it led to them losing a game to find out just how bad he actually is. But the fact that they have guys that could actually fill into that role and transition over there perfectly and smoothly, the Reds are a good team, guys. They're a good baseball team. They're just not what you want them to be. You want them to be great. You want them to be the Dodgers. You want them to be the Yankees. And I'm not talking from a spending category. I just mean from a competitive standpoint. You want them to iron out a lot of their inconsistencies, but you want them to be the Yankees. The Yankees are 19-15. They have 1 more win than the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds would be a game out of leading a division that has the Yankees and the Boston Red Sox right now. All right, you look at the AL Central. The Cincinnati Reds would be 3rd in that division, but they would only be 3 games back of that division, the way they're 3 games back in their division. And the Tigers are one of the best teams in baseball. The Cleveland Guardians are holding the number 1 wildcard spot in the American League, and the Reds would be a game and a half behind them. The Seattle Mariners are 20-13 to lead the West. The Astros are 17-16. They're 3rd in that division. The Reds, who play them this upcoming weekend, who we're talking about, man, that could be a tough matchup. The Reds have a better record than them and would be higher in their division than them if they were higher in the standings in their division if they were in the West. The Mets are 22-13, 4 games better than the Reds. The Reds would be 3rd, a game behind the Phillies for 2nd in that division. I mean, to sit here and act like the Reds are a 13-20 Los Angeles Angels team, to act like the Reds are a 10-24 Chicago White Sox team, to act like the Reds are a 13-20 Baltimore Orioles team, to act like the Reds are a 6-28 Colorado Rockies team, to act like the Reds are a 12-23 Pittsburgh Pirates team. Like, can we stop with the Reds are bad talk? The Reds are not bad. They're not a bad team, guys. Like, we got to stop with that. Frustrating, yes. I think it was Rick? I think Rick earlier in the show on Facebook, he weighed in and said that what he likes to say about the Reds is that they're consistently inconsistent. That's the best way to describe this team. Is that a good thing? No. This team needs to be more consistent. They need to be more buttoned up. They need to eliminate the errors. They need to get more out of this offense. They have a lot of individuals who are playing well and hitting the ball well, but not collectively hitting well. But technically, the team stats say differently. I don't know, guys. Like it's so interesting watching how all of this is unfolding. But say what you want. It's a team that's 3 games back of the Cubs, but they're a game and a half out of the wild card. I just went through division by division. From a pacing standpoint, there's no teams running away with anything. The Dodgers are really, really good. I would hope so, with $400+ million on that payroll. Great. We're not holding the Reds to the Dodger standard. But the fact that they would be 2nd in the division with the Yankees and the Red Sox and a game behind the Yankees for the top spot in that division, guys, the Reds, they're not bad. They're not elite. They're not great. They're not World Series contenders. But to sit there and call this team bad, just admit you don't watch other teams in baseball. Just admit you don't follow Major League Baseball as a whole. Just admit that you only watch the Reds and that is it. Because that's what you're admitting technically without actually saying it. The Reds are not a World Series contender, but what the Reds are not is bad. I can't get on board with that. I just can't. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Sharon Moore, a potential self-imposed 2-game suspension, but a selective 2-game suspension at that. The joke that is the Michigan football team, to me, is just they keep making me laugh more and more. Just when I think they can't come up with a better and funnier joke, they find a way to make me laugh even harder than the last time. Sharon Moore, Michigan, 2-game suspension. Games 3 and 4 of the season. What is happening? We'll be right back.
Meet Alan, who was diagnosed with sleep apnea.
I was what they call a mouth breather, and I would breathe at night with.
right, and we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. We'll have more on the we'll get back into the Michigan stuff coming up here, the top of the 5 o'clock hour, or technically 5:05. We'll get back into that. Last thing as we wrap up hour 2. I'm going to spend more time on this later in the week. As I said, I'm off tomorrow. We have the Memorial Media Day tomorrow, so I'll be out of town in Columbus. But yeah, I don't like this. Jay Morrison put out an article. I love Jay Morrison. Jay Morrison, the article's fine. I don't like Logan Wilson's explanation for why he likes Al Golden. Like, the NFL, it's professional football. And when I hear professional football players saying that they like things to be easier, that doesn't mean that makes you better. I mean, we would all love things to be easier at our job, but easier doesn't mean better, right? Like, you want the best of the best. It's the NFL. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like if any offensive player, if Shedeur Sanders or anybody came out and said, well, yeah, I mean, that playbook, it's complex. You know, luckily this new offensive coordinator is coming in and he's just dumbing it down and just making it easier on us. Well, that's great that it's easier, but is it better? Al Golden coming in to replace Lou Anarumo. Lou Anarumo's defense was good enough to get you to a Super Bowl at one point. Lou Anarumo's defense technically was not why you lost that Super Bowl. Lou Anarumo, the second that the Bengals moved on from, the Bengals said that Lou Anarumo is not good enough to be our defensive coordinator. But the second they moved on, you had teams lining up to go get Lou Anarumo, basically saying, yeah, Cincinnati, just because you don't know how to capitalize with Lou Anarumo doesn't mean that we won't. Teams lined up. The Colts are going to be a significantly better defense this year. And instead, you go to Al Golden. Now, Al Golden, defensive coordinator for Notre Dame, they go to a national championship. That's fine. You could say that I'm hating, but it is what it is. Look, so you have Logan Wilson, who is asked about how excited he is to play for Al Golden and the difference that he thinks it's going to be playing for Al Golden. This quote from, again, this article on SI.com, Jay Morrison put out. Logan Wilson says, basically, there's just less thinking. You're just reacting, doing what you've been doing your whole life, Wilson said. Sometimes, this is the quote that bothered me. Sometimes at this level, you can make things more complex than they need to be. Sometimes you just have to understand that the guys on the other side of the ball get paid to do what they do too. And sometimes they're going to get us in certain ways and not always try to be in the perfect call. It's just understanding the weaknesses if you're in certain call and how they can challenge you in that certain call. He continued, that's what allows you to play more free. Basically saying we were not intelligent enough to play for Lou Anarumo. I think that's really what it comes down to. Did you watch the Cincinnati Bengals defense? Do you think that was a team that was just confused or bad or both? It sounds like it's a little of both. And I like Logan Wilson. I think he's a solid NFL player. I don't think he's a great linebacker. I don't think he's a great NFL player. I think he's just solid. He's okay. But to sit there and say that, you know, that we made it too complex, that we made it easier on ourselves now with going to get this dude with Al Golden, I don't know if I like. I mean, I like that as a non-Bengals fan, but for Bengals fans, I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like. I mean, I don't know. Do you believe that the Bengals have a roster of all this elite defensive talent that was just held back from the complexity of the Lou Anarumo defense? I don't. I think the defense stunk. I don't think the defense is very good. I think you have one of the best pass rushers in football in Hendrickson, and I think it stops after that. Logan Wilson's solid. Okay. What's the next defensive player that the Bengals have that strikes fear in you? Is it the guy that's built like Tarzan but plays like Jane that you just drafted in the first round? The guy that's built like Myles Garrett but doesn't even come close to giving you Myles Garrett production or any production whatsoever? I'm sorry, but just to say that, well, Al Golden, it's not as complex. You know, sometimes we just want to go out there and play. You think that the Eagles' defense isn't complex? You think that the elite teams in football, you think their defense isn't complex? You just want it to be easy? I tell you what a bunch of whiners. What a bunch of crybabies. Get out there and play. It's too complex. It's the National Football League. You're a professional football player. Too complex. Figure it out. And if you don't got guys that are intelligent enough to figure it out, get new guys. Logan Wilson, I thought was better than that. Logan Wilson's one of the few players on the Bengals that I actually really like. But Logan Wilson just wants he wants it to be easy. He just wants it to be simple. He doesn't want to be challenged. He doesn't want to. What? Oh, well. Hour 3 next.
Progressive knows not all rights are